Welcome back to the painting vlogs, everyone. This is episode 2 of Sea Under Siege, and this is the block-in episode. And right here I'm mixing some dioxazine purple and some flesh tint. That's actually what the color is called. It's by Winsor and Newton. And I'm gonna start out with the sky here. I'm varying my value of color as I go along, and what I'll do is I'll come in initially with in some parts of the clouds here I'll actually come in initially with the pure dioxazine purple, and then I kind of made a mix with the flesh tint and the purple itself. Now what I'm trying to do is kind of separate the different sections of cloud to kind of give it some initial shape. So it's not just all one flat color, but it actually varies a little bit. And I have some ideas with these clouds, and I'm going to go into a little bit more detail about what I'm actually going for with the sky itself in a later episode. But right here I'm just kind of trying to set the atmosphere so that I have something to work by and something to work on top of whenever I go in for step 3, which will be the detail step. The way that I had this arranged in my mind or my imagination is that you've got these big, I guess you would call them like cumulonimbus clouds that are clashing together in the sky here as we approach twilight, or as Tiberius approaches twilight and approaches his shift to do his job as a lighthouse keeper. As I mentioned before, in my mind it's around 8 or 9 p.m. and so it's already a little dark outside, and I'm actually gonna go over this again. I know you're thinking, well, gee, the color that you're adding there doesn't make it look like it's dark outside, but I'm actually going to go over all this again in just a minute here with a different color. But before I went over it with the darker color, I just wanted to kind of, like I said, use these lighter colors to distinguish some shape to the clouds themselves, kind of give them a presence in some way or another. And well, the more I do this, the more I'm starting to kind of realize that painting in this particular style is, well, it's almost like rendering a video. If I could compare it to a lot of things, but it's almost like rendering a video. If you've ever edited video, here's another thing I can compare it to. So when you're rendering something like video or something like that, you're gonna start out with a blurry, pixelated image in some cases. This might be a bad example, but just hear me out. You're starting out with something that's not completely clear, and as you work through it, the more you work on it, the more work is done to it, the more clear it becomes and the more you can see. And this particular style of painting is kind of like that, where I feel like I'm bringing things into existence. I know this is kind of Bob Ross to say, but it really is. It's like you're bringing different visualizations into existence. And it starts out with absolutely nothing, and you've got your area on your canvas where you actually create something into existence. Well, the way that I do it is I start out with something very simple and I work my way up to making it very detailed. Now, in this phase, it's very simple. But in the next few phases, it's going to become clearer and clearer to see. So, this is the other color that I'm going in with here, making the sky darker. It's called Payne's Gray, in case you're keeping up. And then I moved on to the water, and with the water, we've got the same old colors that I usually use in all my paintings. We've got Prussian blue and we've got phthalo green. And these are, as far as I know, they're pretty much universal colors for painting water. And I'm trying to do it in a pattern so that, one side of the wave is kind of luminescent and the other side is dark. Then I went over that with like the ripple part of the wave. I went over it with some mixing white. Then I added some of that to the background just to give it a little bit of highlight in the background to make it look like there's rough water out there, like a storm's brewing up. And then I moved on to the rocky cliffside there, and all I'm using here in this is the Payne's Gray once again, and I'm going over it with mixing white. Now this is a very basic process, and you're going in with the darker color and then you're going back over it with the lighter color. And I alternate. I use 2 paintbrushes to do this. The paintbrushes I'm using are very, well, they're not huge, but they're pretty good sized paintbrushes, and that's just the whole point of blocking in. You want to be productive. It's not something that you want to spend a whole lot of time on. Actually, you're just trying to fill the canvas in. And you might use like special strokes, certain strokes with the brush to emphasize certain things. But you're not trying to add any detail here. You're really just trying to fill everything in. And the quicker you can do it, and the quicker that paint dries, the faster you can move on to the detail stage. Now you might notice I'm also doing this in a certain kind of way, and basically, again, like on the Imperfect Cathedral painting, I told you guys that I didn't like to fill in everything with one color and then try to go over it with another color, because if you fill all that space in with a dark color, you're going to lose track of where your lines are. And then that kind of makes the first step kind of pointless, because the first step is adding the lines so that you know where everything is. Well, if you just paint over all that with a dark color at once, you're going to lose track of your lines, and it's almost like they're not there. And then you have to recreate basic shapes again, which, you can do that. It's possible to do that while you're blocking in, but I just kind of like to alternate where I'm moving, like which shapes I'm moving onto, and you'll kind of see it right here whenever I get onto those bricks. Now when I'm filling in the bricks with the dark color, and even the steps with the dark color, I'm not filling shapes, I'm not filling bricks in that are right next to each other. I'm kind of going in a diagonal pattern or any kind of pattern so that the spaces I'm filling in aren't touching each other. And then as soon as I add the highlight, I'll go to the next block over and put the dark color into it. And like I said, that helps me keep track of where my lines are. You notice I skipped that brick right there in the middle. And then I go down. It's kind of like a checker pattern, actually. And that doing that helps me stay consistent and productive. And it helps me get it done faster without losing track of where my lines are. But yep, this is unfortunately all I was able to film of the block-in phase on this particular day. Alright guys, it's the end of episode 2, and I did add a bit more paint. Since I shut the camera down, my SD card filled up on me, so I'm sorry I didn't get the last part of the second sit-in, and I would keep going, but I'm starting to run out of light here. It's getting close to 7 p.m. and it's raining outside, so there's not much light. My eyes are really straining to see, and I apologize. The lights in this truck, like I've said before, they're not great. And this camera, the white balance on it isn't great either, so the painting is extremely hard to see. Not only that, but it's extremely wet right now, and there's a lot of paint on that canvas, wet paint. So it's very, 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 very delicate right now. I have to be extremely careful with it. It's probably going to take it 48 to 72 hours to get to the point where it starts curing. So I'm probably not going to touch it for the next few days. I'll probably pick back up on it before I get back home, before the end of my trip out here in the truck. But this is only the second sit-in, and at this point I've got about 12 hours into it. Now keep in mind, like I said before, this is still the block-in phase. I did make some exceptions, and I did add a little bit more detail into the water there, just because I wanted to play around with it. I've never actually painted water with oil paint, so this is all new to me. But my point is, this is still the block-in phase, so there's no... I'm putting zero effort into any kind of detail, any kind of light balance or consideration for any of that stuff at this point. I'm still trying to fill the canvas up. Now in part 3, if I do get to that while I'm out here in the truck, regardless, I'm going to get to it anyway, but I may get to it while I'm still out here in the truck. And in part 3, I'm going to commit the video and the time into blocking in Tiberius there. Now this painting itself so far, I'm very happy with the progress I've made. Like I said, this is just the second sit-in, but I'm still blocking in everything, and it's still got a long way to go, but I'm happy with the progress that I made today. I probably painted for about 9 or 10 hours today, and I'm pretty pleased with the progress I've made. Also, I just want to say that I'm enjoying it immensely. This freed up, freestyled kind of thing where it's almost like speed painting, even though it's really not, because like I said, 10 hours today and it's still not completely blocked in. But you know, it's very free-handed, just like whenever I went in originally in part 1 with the brush and I made all of the basic lines. free-handed with the paintbrush, I blocked it in a very similar kind of way, and I've enjoyed it. I think it's helping me progress with my control over the oil paint itself and what I actually want it to do. And so I'll just get a little bit closer. I know that there's a lot of static in the video, and I apologize for that. It's just simply the low light. I can try to grab my phone here, use the light from my phone. It might help it a little bit, or it might not. We'll just have to see. Is that helping it any? Not really. Still very rough. The sky in the end is going to be extremely detailed. I can already see which direction I'm wanting to move in with the sky. I'm pretty pleased with the way that the water has started out with, just the direction that the water's heading in. I think it looks pretty good. It still needs a lot of work, a lot of detail, but yeah. So this is the end of part 2. Like I said, thanks for watching. Come back for part 3. We're gonna block in Tiberius there and his lantern, and we'll go from there. Alright, Jared's signing out with Wine of the Nation's Rage, painting vlogs, so on and so forth. I'll see you guys next time.